Welcome to Utah Stories. My name's Rich Marcosi, and I'm your host. I'm the editor and publisher of Utah Stories magazine. If you aren't familiar with Utah Stories, we are the voice of local Utah. We present a voice for the voiceless. That's what we're trying to do. That's our mission. And we go out and speak to business owners, entrepreneurs, farmers, and we've been speaking to the homeless now for about 16 months about what is going on with the growing homeless population in downtown Salt Lake City. Why is it only getting worse despite what's estimated to be about $300 million of spending? It's an incredible amount of money that is not trickling down to the homeless individuals to the greatest degree that it should be. We've been examining that for a long time. We've also been examining the homeless death count, how there is not a consistent number for how many homeless people are dying on the streets. We heard about the 5 people who froze at the very beginning of the winter when it got really cold in December. And according to our guest last week, not 5 people have died of various other causes such as drug overdose, but people are dying of downtown Salt Lake City. You know about Salt Lake City, all well by the LDS. They're shipping out of tons of clean and humanitarian supplies. They're in where the earthquake was, and in Turkey, their business is going to places that need extreme relief and helping by giving them water, shelter. And my question for who happens to be watching this is why is that not happening in downtown city with a mile or two of Well Square? I just would like to know, why is that not happening? Because there's tons of unsheltered. These people are dying. They do have plenty of food. I know there's a problem with not enough food, but there is not enough water in a little bit. PA All-Star Weekend, we would not ever hide the homeless in this city. That is not curious what, because the police move all and the downtown proper area to behind the Rio Grande to the island area. She doesn't want to call it hiding them. That liberal left up. What euphemism would you, Mendenhall? Would you give or of the city? Like, what would you? I just would really like to know what she would label that as. So also the Utah State Legislature is passing some new laws to create deeply affordable housing. To that, we're going to examine the Salt Lake Tribune story about that. Are these real meaningful measures, or will this actually help with the problem? An upcoming affordable housing doing in Moab, and I'm going to be showing you this month, next month, an interview. Really in Moab, they moved with really skilled working professionals welding in Moab, and major challenges are housing in Moab. So at the very end, we're starting a new adventure series, and I want to show you what Antelope Island looks like in the middle of winter. But before I get into, smash the like channel, storiesmagazine.com. You the voice of local Utah, and I want to get into, first of all, why we still print a magazine. Why print a magazine is so wasteful? It kills trees. Got to recycle. Inputs are massive. Magazine. We print a physical print paper magazine when you can pull it up on your computer, just like you can flip I do that. I reminded of why we do that last week when we had a community strike against us, and we little to no explanation because I thought ago bunking a AUTV news story. Utah person had allegedly died from a COVID vaccine, and how that was verified, that the medical exam verified that there may have, and KUTV was hyping this story so that a lot of people local news and go to their website, and that was my take on that story. It really bothers me that the guidelines, they probably just ran their algorithm, just found every COVID and to the decision. It ever even went to a real person, and they said, we have denied your my Rich Kosian YouTube account instead of Utah Stories account. I absolutely love YouTube, for the record. I started on YouTube in 2009, and we all of our own videos back then, and I thought, well, might as well upload once in a while to YouTube, and I discovered the incredible power of that by video called Size Your Tomatoes, like 30,000 for about, how such a small little 4-minute video could reach a massive audience and get out. I really putting all of our videos, and I stopped posting them on our own site anymore, and I don't think any independent creators videos anymore. But now I'm actually back to that, because what am I supposed to be afraid to ever talk about COVID or COVID vaccines now? Is that what they're trying to get across to us? I'm afraid it could happen again, and I'm all think that the important is an enshrined, and if you throw that out, restricting what and cannot talk about, can and cannot, then that is a problem for our country freedoms that we here. And we print on paper, we can censor. Why I want to thank all of you who have gone out to subscribe to the magazine. It's really been a huge benefit to us, because we know we can get this information out to you, and we know we continue to print the magazine every single month and provide the voice to have a voice for the voiceless, because you are supporting us in being able to do that. Whereas if we just relied on and Google, the search engines and everything, they're all centralized agencies. Unfortunately, they're in communication with our government. As we know, the CDC, the FBI have been deciding what is misinformation, what is valid information, working directly with these tech platforms. And I think it's a very scary trend, and I think everybody should speak out about it. They can't censor. They should know that this is something we take seriously, even as a small independent news provider in Utah. So, all right, let's get to our next story. Mayor Mendenhall says she did not hide the homeless. Let's take a look at what the All-Star Weekend looked like. It was quite a spectacle. I spent actually Saturday and Sunday there. I'm just going to run through a few clips here of shots I got while I was down there. You definitely saw the elites from the NBA showing up on the doorstep of Salt Lake City, coming out of these black vans. I thought it was kind of interesting. All these people were gathered just to get a glimpse of the people coming out of the vans. The only person I saw was James Harden coming out, and it was by accident. I just happened to walk right past him. this guy in this orange suit I thought was interesting. I don't know what he was doing, but I can tell you a few things that happened. Obviously, Charles Barkley thought that we have a very lame-ass city. I think that was the quote. And I think Charles Barkley just didn't get invited to the parties, because I know several restaurant owners put on huge parties, and like they had liquor providers, they had open bars, and I know in one case the entire restaurant, I won't say the name of the restaurant without his permission, but the entire thing was rented by LeBron James and company, and they partied all night long, and I would assume they had a wonderful time, because they were there all night partying, and I know some of the support staff who helped with the restaurant, and it was crazy. And so this was the NBA All-Star crossover. And this is kind of what was going on inside of there. Kids were shooting hoops. This was what I played with my kid. It's just a option. It's just like basically playing a game of lightning. And there was a DJ there and a bunch of people hanging out. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't really my thing, but my kids definitely really liked it. They thought it was very cool to go there, and then NBA players would get up and talk. While I was there, it was a couple of NBA players. I honestly didn't know who they were. I wish I was more aware of who the All-Stars are. I used to know, but I just don't know who they are anymore. But let's take a look at the idea that of what happened with the homeless people while this was all happening. There were two protests going on, and I went to the one that was on the southwest corner of the Vivint Arena. Are we still calling it a Vivint Arena, or is it the Delta Center now? I think it's still the Vivint Arena. Yeah. Yeah. So I went to the southwest corner, and I want to show you the protest that was happening there. Give me one moment here. Maybe it's in here. Oh, yep. Okay. All right. This is the Nomad Alliance folks outside. Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't know why.
Can you say something about not getting audio?
So I guess you're not hearing the audio. What they're chanting is, "See us, hear us, see us, hear us. We are people too. We are people too." And so 550 million, this sign reads 550 million to build the gondola, no money for the homeless. There's a ton of money going to the homeless. It's just not ending up in their hands. Stop pretending we don't exist. But there was another protest, though, actually going on the other side of the Vivint Smart Home Arena. I didn't get footage of that, but the police basically surrounded that protest. They intimidated them. It was on the north side, so kind of near where we are right now. But I didn't know that one was happening. But if you want to see an incredibly intimidating police force in Salt Lake City, it was amazing how many cops were there. I think it was about 40 cop cars were in front of the arena, and then a huge number of cop cars. So all the way down, I believe this is Second West, there were police vehicles. And then on the other side of the arena, out in front, there was also a huge display of police force. And obviously they did not want to see anything go down. And I wish I could, let's see if I can find the clip where You see all these cops. Maybe it's this one. No. Well, now there's the cops. Yeah, they were friendly. They were doing their jobs. I'm not blaming them, but they were really trying to prevent any protests from happening, any homeless from being seen, and they did a very effective job. And I think that that was unfortunate, because this is an issue that's just not getting the attention it deserves. It's not getting the homeless voices are not being heard by the authorities, and they are absolutely being hidden. They were hidden for that weekend. But I want to show you now a clip that an interview that I did today with a homeless man. We'll try to see if we can get the audio from it. This was right after the big storm, just today. I'm going to show you what the homeless camp near the island looks like right now. Many, many tents set up. A lot of people trying to figure out how to stay warm. And I'll show you an interview with the guy I talked to. The first guy didn't really want to go on camera, but the second guy was okay with it. You're not getting audio. Yeah, I'm going to take a little break, and we'll come back once we've got this audio issue figured out. All right, we're back. I think we got this figured out. I think I can show you the video with audio now. I'm going to play that for you now. Going on out here. But at least they're not moving you around anymore, I suppose.
I felt like some of the collectively getting moved, and it's kind of weird. I'll tell you, you gotta go to the next place. It's kind of weird.
Well, it's just like, what's their point? And then the mayor said, like, oh, we're not hiding anybody. And then they moved everybody before the All-Star game. And then, like, what are you doing then? What are you going to call it if you're not hiding people?
Yeah.
I mean, you're moving them away from downtown, the main downtown area. I consider that hiding.
It's a lot of areas safety. A lot of trouble in areas.
Yeah.
See, it's kind of that's what we're talking about. Basically, COVID thing, and then we had this weird problems, like, I don't know, kind of a vampire problem a few years ago.
Vampire problem?
Yeah, a little different.
What's that?
Just people started going on mission and stuff. It's kind of weird.
How did you find yourself out here?
Me? My parents passed on. My stepdad passed on. We came home and mom did. 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Jeez. All those deaths happened at once?
Well, my mom, stepmom passed on, and my dad stepdad about a year later, and then my grandma was a year before.
Jeez. Are you from here?
Yeah, I'm from here.
How about you?
I'm from here.
Are you?
I'm from Taylorsville originally.
See, a lot of these guys go to traumatic stuff and they're ready to tell a story, you know. They don't remember it because their mind bleeds it, or there's parts of it, or...
Yeah.
I don't know, I'd like to tell you more, but I gotta find out if I can, for sure.
Yeah. How did you find yourself out here?
My grandma passed away 8 years ago, and due to that, I lost a place to live. My family kind of kicked me out once my grandma passed away.
Really?
Yep.
And you just couldn't find affordable housing? Is that for a job?
Basically, yeah.
And do you have hope that you can get a job and get into affordable housing at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're feeling more hopeful about it?
Hopefully, yeah. So they should be. I know they're planning on building more places for us. I hope. So we'll have like more housing and stuff like that. But I don't know what their plan is. I know they're building this building right here, and that's it so far. I don't know about anything else. I think.
Like
I don't know. The mayor should have put us in somewhere like back. What was it? 2 years ago or a year ago? During the winter time they put us over at the airport inn when it was over. We were over at the airport inn for overflow. They should do something like that again. They did that till April, but I don't. Like I said, I don't know exactly what's going on.
I think they had a staffing issue. They just couldn't find enough people to staff it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know what the issue is. Why don't they hire you guys to staff it?
Yeah, true that. Volunteers or workers. And another hard part is getting my ID, so I can get a job. I just got to get my ID so I can be able to show that. You got to show two verifications. Two verifications to a job, and so that's another thing that's stopping me as well too. When I get that done, I'm kind of sad.
Are you going about that right now?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a hold of my VOA case manager, but for some godly reason she doesn't want to answer. I've left plenty of voicemails for her, and I've called her office. I've talked to her boss and told her, can you have Raquel call me?
Okay. Yeah, so his name was Gage, and I found out he had lost his family members. I mean, he just doesn't have family members in Salt Lake City anymore. And his mother, it's either his mother or his grandmother, lives in Evanston, Wyoming, and he was trying to find a way to maybe get back up there because she found an affordable apartment, and that was his next step. But he said he just still didn't have any ID. These are all like solvable problems. And the thing that he wanted me to make clear is that he had a caseworker through the Volunteers of America. The caseworker was working towards helping him get an ID and getting him back to live with his mom in Evanston. And he hasn't seen her now in months. And so I'd really like to ask Volunteers of America what's going on. He says he also knows other folks who were assigned caseworkers through that, and they have not responded or reached out to them because he doesn't have a phone. He needs them to physically come to him or know where to meet them. And that really seems to be the biggest disconnect right now. It seems like a lot of these people just don't have any caseworker support. And I'm trying to find out, so why don't churches and their members, I belong to a church, create a ministry, a homeless ministry where they have volunteer caseworkers? Like I'm actually trying to find out this information for these people on behalf of these people, but obviously I'm one person, and Ty Bellamy does the same thing. We had her on the podcast last week, and there's other people who are actively helping individual homeless people with their problems, but there's just not nearly enough of them. And I think that is actually one of the biggest problems right now. As we found out through James Buchanan, who did the entire audit of the whole entire homeless system and the spending that's being allocated for the homeless in Utah, there's about $250 to $300 million being spent on about 7,500 individuals, and it seems to me absolutely ridiculous that they can't pay a caseworker enough money to stick around to help these people, because that's really a huge part of what they need. And then it also seems totally crazy to me. So Mayor Mendenhall said, "I'm spending every day thinking about this issue more than any other issue as mayor." And I'm like, okay, well, why don't you stop thinking about it and actually go down and talk to these people? Like, go talk to Gage, go talk to Ty Bellamy, go talk to all the people who are out there working on the streets with the homeless people and engage them in a conversation. I don't think thinking about it is going to come up with, it may help you come up with a solution. And also, why continue to engage in the absolutely insane policy of homeless abatements? Like, that has been stopped and paused for the last 2-3 weeks since before the All-Star weekend, and since after the deaths it hasn't been as aggressive. But why not be working toward getting that overflow shelter opened up? What's the status of that? She hasn't mentioned that. That Ramada Inn, the airport hotel that was already set aside for the homeless, that she was unable to get it staffed, as far as I know. Why isn't that open now? Why not hire homeless people to be working at these facilities? And so this idea that she's not hiding them, she is. This idea that she's just handcuffed to some antiquated policy, she can't change anything, that's false. I just don't believe it at all. And so we'll keep working on this issue. This story, I think, is still the most important story in Utah, because it's when you are not concerned with the people who are suffering the most in your community, then you're really ignoring the most important problems that your community is facing. So let's take a look now at what the Utah State Legislature is doing for affordable housing. I'm going to go visit the Salt Lake Tribune. Bear with me a second here. This was a story that I saw today at the paper. Let's see if I can just pull it up. Okay. So 8 projects, 880 affordable units are coming with $8 million in help from Salt Lake City. This is addressing trying to build deeply affordable housing. Is this going to really happen? So these loans show our housing policies are working, the council member says. So this is an article from January 12th. That Salt Lake City will provide $8.36 million in low interest. This is not the story I read today on the paper. I don't know why that story is not on their page yet. But this is providing more affordable housing incentives to developers. And this says the Salt Lake City Council's role in the RDA loans of between $280,000 and $1.825 million with reduced interest rates for 40-year terms. The story I read this morning that apparently is just not on their page is about how the Salt Lake City Council is giving low interest loans for down payments to get people into housing. Let me try one more thing to find that story. Apparently, you got to pull up the e-edition to see that story right now. Okay, I found it. Okay, help for home buyers. Come on. Okay, it's making me log in. Okay, Help for home buyers. Loan program draws support, but affordability is still in question. And so it was a 2-bedroom single-family home with a double carport. It cost $52,000. Senate President Stuart Adams still clearly remembers the feeling of buying his first home in Layton, the city where he grew up. When you own your own home, something just happens, Adams says. It does something to you. Not too long ago, Utah served as a model for a type of stability other states strived for. In 2016, I think Tank Brookings published an article declaring the American middle class is still thriving in Utah. Homeownership has long been thought of as a pillar of that thriving middle class, the realization of American dream. In America, we believe in home ownership, Adams says, and in Utah, we believe in home ownership. But for Utahns living on middle and lower incomes, home ownership is increasingly out of reach, Adams told members of the State Economic Development and Workforce Services Committee on February 17th. Adams worried Utah's middle class might be disappearing, and the numbers seemed to back up his concerns. The Kem C. Gardner Policy Institute found that more than 70% of Utah renters couldn't afford the median price of a home in 2020. At the same time, Utah's middle class is struggling just to afford rents in the state. So what's their solution? Senate Bill 240, which Adams is sponsoring, aims to give first-time home buyers a hand in providing $20,000 loan to help with a down payment, closing costs, or buying down the interest rate. The loan could be used for newly constructed homes, a move Adams hopes will incentivize the construction of more housing stock. Because right now they're not building homes like crazy anymore because of inflation and because it looks like we might be entering into a recession. There's just not enough home buyers who want to buy homes with such high interest rates and with such inflation. So what will this really make a difference? I mean, absolutely we need to have starter homes for more people in Utah, but I think this is still far too expensive for most people. They'll build a home and the construction costs are going to make it cost upward of $400,000 to $500,000, which means your mortgage is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000 a month, which means you really need to be making about $6,000 or $7,000 a month to afford a starter home. And that still prices out most of the middle class here in Utah. And so I just don't see this as a meaningful piece of legislation. We tried to have Senator Mike Lee come on the program because he has a bill that he was going to introduce to open up more public land for development. I think that is actually an interesting idea the more I think about it, because there is this off-grid movement, and especially near Moab, you find that a lot of people wouldn't mind living off-grid in a tiny home, and they know that they'd have to supply their own water, they'd have to have their own solar panel to provide electricity and heating. But I think that could entirely be possible, because I want to show you a clip of what it looks like in Moab, just outside of town. It's just like the clip I'm about to show you is only about a mile and a half outside of town. And there is so much land out there, and there's so much need for more workers. If you just allowed there to be affordable housing, you could absolutely accommodate the people who want to live there. So the land I'm about to show you is BLM land, and this is a camping area, popular camping area just outside of town. Like I said, if you know the town of Moab, once you get to that Moab Giants area, you're near the area where the Dead Horse Point turnoff is. This is just a little bit north of that. I mean, look at all this land. How hard would it be to install a road and allow people to have tiny homes out here? And it just goes on and on and on. It's just sagebrush and cedars. I went out there with my dogs and we walked around for a few hours, and this is just National Public Bureau of Land Management land. And as you can see, it goes on and on. And here's somebody, you can see this little tent off on the side. Somebody was camping there. But if you give people the option to buy a little piece of property, it is amazing what you can do. It is amazing the feeling people get of having a little bit of ownership. And to say that there's just no space is ridiculous. There's plenty of room. There's plenty of space to get people into housing. And this expanse of land out in Moab, if you just look at this last clip, I'll bring it back to that. I mean, if this goes on for hundreds or if not thousands of acres of land, where if you just told people, yeah, you're going to have to take 5 gallons of water with you every couple of days, and you can come to this place and fill up your water and then let them live off grid, why couldn't that work? I mean, I just come up with these kind of crazy ideas, I guess, in terms of what should be possible, but it just seems like it's not. But my question is, why is this not possible? Especially with Mike Lee saying, let's just open up a little bit more public land for affordable housing. Seems like an idea. Yeah, and so we were in Moab just 2 weeks ago. I just want to show you the town of Moab now. There's also tons of land all over the place. This is the newest housing development going on right now. That's a community rebuilds project. It's where people put their own sweat equity into being able to buy and afford a home who live in the town of Moab. But you can see right next to it, there's a lot of farmland, just a lot of space. This is kind of south of town, near, I think you get to a Maverick station if you look up here. And there's to say there's not enough land is not true. And there's also plenty of water. We learned that. I learned that from a guy who's been in Moab now for 10 years. The LaSalle Mountains are absolutely full of water and runoff all season long. And I think that just people, longtime residents in Moab, just don't want to see the growth. They don't want to see more people. They don't want to see more development. And that's really what's preventing it from happening. And I get it. You want to keep the town small and quaint, and you want to not be so reliant on the tourism economy. I absolutely get that. So why not embrace the idea that's already been started that USU has a satellite campus there, and you teach people actual trades, and that you introduce trades that lend themselves to manufacturing and building, and start building more things here in Utah. And along those lines, we promote that heavily at Utah Stories. We started the Made in Utah Festival back in 2014, and the reasoning behind the festival was we buy all these products from China and even products that are made all over the world, but why be so completely reliant in our supply chains for these foreign countries? Why not make more products here? Why not have more jobs for manufacturing back in the United States? And so the thought is, we have rural towns all over Utah that are suffering because there's no economic base, and these towns residents often have to come to Salt Lake City to try to live because they just can't make enough money, in a rural economy. We obviously have too many people who are coming to Salt Lake City right now to accommodate them because we have a big housing shortage. If there were economic incentives to get people to build things such as backpacks or outdoor equipment in more small towns, they've done that in Colorado very successfully. Why don't we do that in Utah? And so we're going to be getting into that in future episodes of the podcast. I had on the program, our very first episode, Val Hale, who was the Economic Development Director for the state of Utah. I'd like you to have him back on because I don't understand why all the economic development is happening to giant corporations such as Scheels and Amazon and Cabela's and these massive giant entities, rather than incubating home-grown businesses right here in Utah. So we'll be looking at that in future episodes, and subscribe to our newsletter to be a bigger part of that. So I want to show you for the last segment an Antelope Island adventure in the middle of a blizzard. I'm going to take a little pause, but when we get back, I'm going to show you what it was like to go and visit the island while snow was falling heavily with our kids, and how I think this is an awesome thing to go to do in the middle of winter. That'll be just in a few moments. All right, we're back. We're doing here on the show. I want to share with you some adventures that I go on with my dogs and kids in the mountains, and just to show you the broad variety of Utah and the incredible things you can do here. I like to go to remote areas, so if you really like the crowded trails, you're not going to like this segment that much. But if you really want to get away from the crowds, you want to find the most remote places where you can just explore some of the coolest places in Utah, I think you're going to like this segment. All right, so what we decided to do, I've been trying to get my wife to agree to this for a while. I wanted to take the kids to see the massive expanse of the Great Salt Lake from Antelope Island. And if you know how Antelope Island is, it's a causeway you drive out on, and then you get to the island, and it's got this big, huge buffalo preserve. So you can see buffalo, and you can see a lot of bird species in the fall and the summer. You don't see a lot of birds in the middle of winter. But I thought it'd be really cool to see what it's like in the middle of winter. So I'm going to show you some footage from that experience right now. And this is us climbing up to Buffalo Point in the middle of a blizzard. I'm going to play that for you now. And the funny thing about this, I want to show you where Buffalo Point is. And I think my kid thought that was the top, but it was not the top. The top is, if I can get back to it, it's actually that up here in front of him. So it was like another maybe 3/4 of a mile to get there. And the wind is blowing and we're super cold. The kids weren't wearing gloves. And I just was like, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, guys. We could just turn around right now. And I was amazed because my kids were just troopers. They wanted to go all the way to the top. And the wind was blowing incredibly hard. You could see my kid here can hardly stand up. He's getting blown by the wind extremely hard. And it was pretty awesome. And there's Joey getting his face coated in white snow. And Scamps, of course, the dogs loved it, but the kids loved it too. So go figure, in the middle of the blizzard, you can keep your kids happy. And I think what it is like kids these days are so pampered, and they're like just I find out most mornings when it's cold, I get a text message showing up saying, "Oh, brr, it's an inside day. Kids aren't going to play outside at all today." I remember as a kid, we would go play outside all the time. It didn't matter if it was 0 degrees. The teachers would kick us out. We'd go to the playground. We'd play out in the freezing cold. And it was like, that was not a thing. And now most days in the winter are inside days. And I don't think that's good for kids. I think kids want to feel cold. They want to feel the wind and the snow on their face. That's part of being alive. And so I'm way into this idea of free-range kids, having kids experience the wilderness and nature the way it's meant to be experienced in some discomfort. And that's definitely what we got. And it was quite awesome to see. My kids actually had a blast. We had a really good time. And then when we got back, we were all exhausted and we took a huge nap and then had a great dinner that night. And all of us crashed very early. So yeah, Buffalo Point up on Antelope Island. Go check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. So with that, thank you so much for watching the Utah Stories Show. If you want to be a part of the Voice of Local Utah, go out to utahstories.com and subscribe to our free digital newsletter. We will send you the Voice of Local Utah once a week with all of our best content and stories that we're publishing. You can go check that out, and that's absolutely free. But if you want to support our team of intrepid journalists and you want the magazine delivered to your door every single month, you can subscribe for just $3 a month and help us out in preventing big tech censorship. You know, it's real. It's happening. Obviously, we cannot talk about COVID vaccines anymore. I'm not going to be weighing in on this platform anymore. So we're actively seeking other platforms where we can bring you the truth and hold truth to power, because that is what we need to be doing as members of the local media. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.